Hello. Today we are tackling lesson 3 in our equations unit, one-step equations with rational coefficients. You should know what all of those vocabulary words mean, but if you don't, we're going to do a quick review here. Get your learning target filled in. I can solve one-step equations with rational coefficients. What is a rational coefficient? We did a rational numbers unit, and remember, a rational number is a fraction or decimal. So a rational coefficient is a coefficient that is a rational number, meaning it's going to be a fraction or a decimal. We're really only going to focus on the fractions. The fractions are the big deal, key idea that helps us when you move into 8th grade. So we're just going to focus on the fractions. All right, so make sure you get that definition written down. And remember, this is a video. You can pause at any time. You can rewind, and then you can hit play when you're ready. All right, our second question. How can we make a rational coefficient into 1? Because remember, in our last unit with multiplying and dividing, we needed that coefficient to be 1. It needs to be 1x, 1y, 1z, whatever. So the same thing applies here. And what we learned in our rational numbers unit is to make a rational number into 1, you multiply it by its reciprocal. What's the reciprocal? Now, I'm not going to write this down. I'm just going to say this. Make sure you write it down if you need to. The reciprocal is when the numerator and the denominator switch places. So the numerator becomes the denominator becomes the numerator. They flip. Some of you like to say it's the flip. All right, so I have an example here. 2/3 reciprocal is 3/2. You can see that denominator became the numerator became the denominator. And when we multiply those out, 2 times 3, let me grab my pen here, 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 2 is 6. So we have 6/6, which is the same as 1. We can also use a method called cross cancellation, where we see, oh, I have a 2 in this numerator and a 2 in this denominator. So that would simplify to 1, and a 3 in this denominator and a 3 in this numerator would also simplify to 1. So that's where the 1 comes from. I'm going to show you both ways. I'm going to show you with cross canceling, and I'm going to show you just multiplying across and getting to that 1. And you will do whichever you are comfortable with. All right, so how do I solve a one-step equation with rational coefficients? Here's our first example. We have 3/4 times x equals 18. So just like in our last lesson when we said times, we know we're going to have to divide to get to our answer. The left side still has to equal the right side in the end. That's our end game. That's where we're going to. Okay, so to get our coefficient into a 1x on our variable term, we have to take the reciprocal of that coefficient. So it's 3/4. The reciprocal then would be 4/3. So I'm going to put a box around my reciprocal. Now, remember, equations are equal on the left and the right. So I'm multiplying on the left side by 4/3. I also have to multiply on the right side by that same reciprocal by 4/3, okay, to keep that equation equal. Now we're going to do the multiplication in this next step. So 4/3 times 3/4 x, I'm going to do the cross simplifying here. 4 goes into 4 once. 3 goes into 3 once. So I have 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 times 1, which is 1. So I've got my 1x. Now on the right side, I have a 4/3 times 18/1. 4 and 1, you can't cross simplify. They have no factors in common, but 3 and 18 do. You can divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 18 divided by 3 is 6. So now I have 6 times 4 is 24, and 1 times 1 is 1. So I have 1x equals 24/1. I'm going to change that to 1x equals 24 and just write it as the whole number. All right, now, of course, we're still going to do our check. So that's what's happening over here. We're going to substitute in what we got for our x. So 3/4 times x should equal 18. So what we're saying is if we multiply 3/4 by 24, we should get 18. Well, we're going to substitute that in. So that's a step here. And then you see in my substitution, I go back to the rational number version of our answer, 24/1, because I'm multiplying by a rational number. So I have 3/4 times 24/1. 3 and 1, you can't do any cross simplification, but 4 and 24 have a common factor. It's 4. So I'm going to divide 4 divided by 4, which is 1, and 24 divided by 4, which is 6. So now I have 3/1 times 6/1, and hopefully you can see that that becomes 18/1. So the left side equals 18/1, the right side equals 18. We are good. We are the same. So our solution of x equal to 24 makes that equation true. Okay, let's do another example. Actually, we have 2 more examples, don't we? All right, now on these, I'm not going to do the cross simplifying. For some of you, you don't prefer to do that. So I will show you just multiplying your numerators times your denominators, and you'll get to the same place. All right, so I have 1/5 times x equals -15. My variable term is 1/5 x. So I can see that my coefficient is a rational number. It's 1/5. And in order to make that rational coefficient into 1, I know I have to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So what's the reciprocal of 1/5? It's 5/1. So I'm going to do 5/1 times 1/5 x. Remember, you can use a dot or parentheses for multiplication. And then because I did that on the left side, I also have to do that on the right side. Take that reciprocal and multiply it by the -15. And I'm going to turn that into a rational number as well. All right, now if I don't do my cross simplification, but just multiply across, 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 5 is 5. So I have 5/5x equals, numerators here, 5 times -15. I may have to do some side math here, so I'll go over here. 15 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 7. And that would be negative because one of them is negative. So -75/1, because the denominator is 1 times 1 is 1. All right, 5/5 can be simplified to 1x. And then we have -75 can be simplified by just taking that denominator off. So to make this equation true, we're saying the answer for x, what you substitute in, is going to be -75. Let's see if that's true. Okay, we're going to do our substitution here. So we have 1/5 x equals -15. So in place of x, I'm going to put -75/1. I'm going to multiply those numerators. 1 times -75 is -75. 5 times 1 is 5. And then you always have to simplify. You always have to look and see, is your answer in simplest form? So how many 5s go into -75? I know it's going to be a negative number. And I might have to do side math over here with the division. And that's okay. 5 goes into 7 once. 7 minus 5 is 2. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. There's nothing left. Oh, -15. And look at that. The left side matches the right side. So this solution that we got does make this equation true. Let's try one more. Get a different color here. 3/4 times x equals 15/16. Now what you're going to notice on this one is it's all rational numbers. We have a rational coefficient on our variable x, and we have a rational number on the right side of the equal sign. All right. Well, our coefficient is what we take the reciprocal of. So which is our coefficient, 3/4 or 15/16? If you said 3/4, you are correct because that is attached to the variable x. So we're going to do 4/3 times 3/4 x. And we're going to put that equal sign and we're going to bring that reciprocal over 4/3 times 15/16. All right, again, I'm just multiplying numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 4 is 12, and attach the x. 15 times 4, I'm going to go over here, do that, 60. And 16 times 3, I'll go over here and do that, 48. 12 over 12x can simplify to 1x because you can divide by 12. What about 60 over 48? What factor do they have in common? 60 over 48. It's a big one. And if you know your facts, you might get there on the first try, or you might have to break it down a little, but I'm going to guess there on the first try. You can divide both these by 12. So 60 divided by 12 is 5. And 48 divided by 12 is 4. 5 and 4 don't have any factors in common, so that is simplest form. And we're going to leave it as an improper fraction. Okay, we worked with rational numbers. Leave the improper fraction. It'll be easier when we do our check. So let's do that. 3/4 times x should equal 15/16. What did we get for x? We got 5/4. So we're going to do 3/4 times 5/4. Just multiply across. Numerator times numerator, 15. Denominator times denominator, 4 times 4 is 16. So you can see the left side equals the right side. All right. Bring these notes with you. We'll get to some practice.